For Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. Thousands of Democrats and protesters are gathering in Chicago for the Democratic National Convention today, where Vice President Kamala Harris will formally accept the nomination as the party's presidential candidate. Earlier this month, delegates made Harris their nominee in a virtual roll call. President Joe Biden tonight will provide the keynote address. Harris laid out her economic agenda should she become president Friday. Eileen Alfandary reports.
Harris said she would work to pass the first ever federal ban on price gouging by food giants with penalties for companies that exploit economic crises. Harris proposed a sizable $6,000 child tax credit for families with children in the first year of life. She also called for restoration of the expanded child tax credit of up to $3,600 a year per child. Early this month, Senate Republicans blocked action on restoring the pandemic-era tax credit of that amount. Harris also said she would work with the states to cancel medical debt for millions of Americans. More than 100 million adults owe an estimated $220 billion in medical debt. Black and Latino adults suffer from medical debt disproportionately when compared to white Americans. On housing, Harris called for construction of 3 million new housing units and a $40 billion innovation fund to finance local solutions to build housing. Her proposal includes $25,000 in down payment support for first-time home buyers. I'm Eileen Alfandary.
Activists have converged in Chicago, hoping to call attention to such issues as economic injustice, climate change, and reproductive rights, and the war in Gaza. Chicago's mayor called the U.S.-backed war in Gaza a genocide over the weekend. City officials Friday agreed to allow organizers to have a stage, a sound system, and porta potties after refusing the requests, which sparked legal challenges. Organizers estimate turnout for today's first protest march on the DNC to be at least 20,000. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Jerusalem today to push for a ceasefire in Gaza. He earlier met with President Isaac Herzog and warned it may be their last chance.
This is a decisive moment, probably the best, maybe the last opportunity to get the hostages home, to get a ceasefire, and to put everyone on a better path to enduring peace and security. I'm here as part of an intensive diplomatic effort on President Biden's instructions to try to get this agreement to the line and ultimately over the line. It is time for it to get done.
He also said they're working to ensure there's no escalation or expansion of a regional war. It's his 9th trip to Israel since October 7th. The three countries mediating the proposed ceasefire, the U.S., Qatar, and Egypt, report progress on a deal under which Israel would halt most military operations in Gaza, but maintain control of the Philadelphia corridor along the Gaza-Egypt border and the east-west route that bisects Gaza. It would also include the release of a number of Palestinian prisoners in exchange for the release of hostages held by Hamas. Late Sunday, Hamas said in a statement Netanyahu's continued to set obstacles to a deal by demanding new conditions, accusing him of wanting to prolong the war. In Gaza, Palestinian health officials say the first case of polio has been recorded in an unvaccinated 10-month-old child in Deir el-Balah. The United Nations is calling for a humanitarian pause in fighting to beef up polio vaccinations for some 640,000 Palestinian children following the discovery of the virus in wastewater in two major Gaza cities last month. Meanwhile, airstrikes and forced evacuations in Gaza continue. The Al-Maghazi refugee camp was given notice to evacuate over the weekend, where Pacifica reporter Rami Amagari is based out of. It's his third evacuation. A global weekend of action demanding an end to the war in Gaza. Protests took place around the world from the UK and Liverpool and other cities. To Australia, across Europe, Indonesia, Japan, and South Korea. In the U.S., ahead of the Democratic National Convention, not another bomb protest took place in dozens of cities, demanding a U.S. arms embargo to Israel from Brooklyn, New York. To Oakland, California. To Chicago, where activists rallied for reproductive and labor rights and an arms embargo. Here's Laura with the U.S.-Palestinian Community Network.
We are over 300 days into a U.S.-backed genocide led by Israel. Palestine is a reproductive justice issue. Reproductive justice will never be achieved until we see a fully liberated Palestine where fathers and mothers don't have to hold their children's dead bodies in plastic bags, where the rate of miscarriage hasn't skyrocketed to over 300%, and where Palestinian families can exist and raise children without the constant threat of Israeli violence.
Protests also took place in Atlanta, Boston, Dearborn, Michigan, Albuquerque, Los Angeles, Milwaukee, and Washington, D.C. Friday. The UK's Guardian publication is reporting FBI agents have raided and searched the Virginia home of a Russian, Dmitry Sims, an author and policy analyst who advised Donald Trump's 2016 presidential election campaign, and who currently hosts a public affairs program on Russia's state-run Channel 1. The raid began on the 13th of August. Sims' name was included more than 100 times in the 2019 Mueller report into Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election. Ukrainian authorities have issued a mandatory evacuation order for families with children from the eastern city of Pokrovsk, where 53,000 Ukrainians still live. They say Russian forces are advancing so quickly, families must evacuate to nearby towns. One of Kiev's attempts to ease the pressure in the region was to invade Russia's Kursk region in an attempt to compel it to split its military resources. I'm Christina Onnested reporting for Pacifica Radio.